Have you ever wondered why some things in life are free, but for other things, you've got to pay up? You know, this isn't just a random thing. It's actually one of the biggest questions in economics, and today we are going to break it all down. Let's get into it.
Seriously, think about it. You order a pizza, you pay for it, it's all yours. But when you're walking home at night and you pass under a streetlight, you don't get a bill for that, right? So why is that? Well, this super simple question is the key to unlocking a massive economic idea: market failure.
So, here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to figure out the different kinds of stuff in our economy. Then, we'll nail down what market failure actually means. After that, we'll get into the big reasons it happens, like hidden costs and information gaps. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at the tools governments use to try and fix things.
Okay, first things first. Before we can understand why markets sometimes break, we need to understand the goods themselves. Turns out, everything around us, every good or service, can be sorted out using two really simple ideas. The first idea is being non-excludable. All this means is that if something exists, you can't really stop people from using it. Street lighting is the perfect example. Once that light is on, anybody walking down that street benefits. It doesn't matter if they pay taxes or not. And the second idea is being non-rivalrous. This just means that when you use something, it doesn't get used up. There's still just as much left for the next person. Think about a radio broadcast. You tuning in doesn't stop millions of other people from listening to the exact same show at the exact same time.
Now here's where it gets cool. When you combine these two ideas, you get different categories of goods. So, a slice of pizza, it's excludable. The pizza guy won't give it to you if you don't pay. And it's rivalrous. If you eat it, I can't. That makes it a private good. But what about something like national defense? It's not excludable and non-rivalrous. That's a public good. And then you've got stuff in the middle, like a toll road, that's kind of both. We call those quasi-public goods.
So now that we get the different kinds of goods, we can finally get to the heart of the matter. What happens when the whole system of buying and selling, the free market, just doesn't get it right?
Well, that's what economists call a market failure. It's when the market, all on its own, doesn't produce the right amount of something that we as a society really need. And this isn't about being good or evil. It's all about efficiency. The market is just making too much of something bad or not nearly enough of something good.
So why does this even happen? Well, there are a few usual suspects. We're going to focus on three of the big ones: externalities, which are these hidden costs and benefits, the special problem with public goods, and information gaps, which is when one person knows way more than the other. Let's kick things off with a really fascinating one: externalities. You can think of these as the economic side effects, the spillovers that affect people who had nothing to do with the original transaction. So here's the formal definition. An externality is a cost or a benefit that lands on a third party, someone who wasn't the buyer or the seller. And these spillovers can be either positive or negative. And this slide lays out the difference perfectly. A positive externality is a benefit that spills over. So when you get a vaccine, you're not just protecting you, you're helping to protect everyone around you. Now, on the flip side, a negative externality is a cost that spills over. A factory might make products cheap, but its pollution can make an entire town sick. So the huge problem with negative externalities is this: the cost for the company, the private cost, is way lower than the true cost for all of society, the social cost. And because the factory doesn't have to pay for the health problems its pollution causes, the market ends up making way too much of whatever that factory produces. And for positive externalities, it's the total opposite. The benefit you get from, say, getting an education, your private benefit, is much smaller than the total benefit to society. Because you don't get a paycheck for all the good things your education does for the community, the market, left alone, will produce too little of these great things, like education and research. All right, on to our next cause of market failure. This one is all about information. What happens when a deal is completely lopsided because one person is holding all the informational cards?
This is called asymmetric information. Now, asymmetric is just a fancy word for unequal or unbalanced. It's when the seller knows a whole lot more about what they're selling than the buyer does, or the other way around. And this imbalance, it can cause some major headaches.
The first headache happens before a deal is even made. It's called adverse selection. Just imagine you're trying to buy a used car. The person selling it knows exactly what's wrong with it. They know if it's a gem or a piece of junk, a lemon. But you don't. So because you can't tell the good from the bad, you're probably only going to offer an average price. Well, that low price drives all the sellers with good cars away, leaving a market full of lemons.
The second problem? It happens after the deal is done. This one is called moral hazard. It's when someone starts acting differently, maybe a little more recklessly, because they know they're protected from the risk. For instance, if you have really good car insurance, you might not be quite as careful about locking your doors. Because hey, if it gets stolen, you know the insurance company has got your back.
Okay, so we've seen how markets can stumble. We've talked public goods, externalities, and these information gaps. So what can we do about it? Well, this is where governments often decide to step in. And they have a whole toolbox of policies they can use to try and fix these failures.
And the main tools are pretty easy to get. Governments can slap a tax on things to make harmful stuff, like cigarettes, more expensive. They can use subsidies to make beneficial things, like solar panels, cheaper. They can set price controls to keep essential things affordable. Or they can just provide the good themselves, like they do with public schools.
Now let's zoom in on price controls for a second, because their effects are really specific. A maximum price, which we also call a price ceiling, is when the government sets a price below what the market would naturally charge. This might sound nice for consumers, but it almost always leads to a shortage, because suppliers don't want to sell for so little. On the other hand, a minimum price, or a price floor, is set above the market price. This can lead to a surplus.
And this table is really the perfect summary of the trade-offs. You see, every single one of these government tools has a potential downside. Taxes on gas might reduce pollution, but they can really hurt low-income families. Subsidies are great, but they cost the government a ton of money. And, as we just saw, price controls might protect some people, but they can create those nasty shortages or surpluses. There's just no perfect, easy answer.
And that really brings us to the most important takeaway here. The whole point of government intervention isn't for the government to just mess with the economy for fun. It's supposed to be a careful, calculated attempt to fix a specific problem by weighing all the pros and all the cons of every action.
Which leaves us with the million-dollar question that people argue about every single day. When you look at the world around you, when does government intervention actually help the market, and when does it just make things worse? That's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.